Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story, everyone. Mom, can I put my drawing in the window? Lily asked, already running around the elegant cafe in the lobby of the Carter Tower before even hearing the answer. Lily, stay close to me. Emma tried to grab her, but the girl was already crossing the polished lobby, chatting with security guards and receptionists as if they were old friends. The sound of expensive shoes echoed through the hall. James Carter, CEO of Carter & Co., was striding quickly across the space. Phone pressed to his ear, clearly in a hurry. As he bent down to pick up the pen he had dropped, he came face to face with Lily. "Hi," she said, grinning from ear to ear. He gave her a polite smile until his gaze landed on the silver pendant swinging from the girl's neck, a circle with a small engraving, impossible to mistake. James's heart skipped a beat. A distant summer flashed in his mind, laughter by the shore, a young woman with sparkling eyes, and him placing that very pendant around her neck before saying goodbye, not knowing they would never see each other again. His voice came out lower than he meant. "Where did you get that necklace?" Lily blinked, innocent. "Mom gave it to me," she said. "It's important." James's stomach tightened. He had to find out who this girl's mother was, and whether she was the same woman he had never been able to forget. He stood still for a few seconds, watching Lily run back toward the cafe. The pendant kept swinging, each movement stirring memories he had tried to bury for years. Taking a deep breath, he followed her, trying to look casual as he walked toward Manhattan Brew. Through the glass doors, he saw a woman behind the counter, brown hair pulled into a messy bun, navy blue uniform, moving quickly as she filled orders, even from the back. Something about her posture felt familiar. When she turned, James felt the air leave his lungs. Emma, no doubt about it. The same expressive eyes. The same smile that used to light up her face when she laughed at his bad jokes. Of course, she had changed. A more mature face, a few faint lines that hadn't been there 15 years ago. But it was her. Definitely her. "Mom, look, the penman." Lily pointed at James, who was still outside, clearly watching through the glass. Emma looked up and made a face of mild impatience. "Lily, come back here. And you, sir, if you want something, you'll have to come in and order like everyone else." James pushed the door open, trying to seem natural. He walked up to the counter with what he hoped was a charming smile. But Emma had already turned her attention back to the espresso machine. "Good morning. One Americano, please," he said, trying to make eye contact. "Size?" Emma asked without looking at him, busy filling another cup. "Large. And it's a beautiful morning, isn't it?" Emma finally met his eyes, her expression making it clear she saw him as just another board executive trying to make small talk. "Sir, it's 8:50. 9 inches the morning. I've got 15 orders in line and a daughter running loose. If you want to talk about the weather, I suggest you call the meteorology service." Some customers in line chuckled quietly. James felt his face warm, but he pressed on. "Of course, sorry. It's just that your daughter is very sweet. She reminds me of." Emma cut him off, handing him the cup. "Next." At that moment, Lily came running with a tray of sugar she had grabbed from a nearby table. In her rush to show James she could help Mom, she bumped into his arm just as he was about to take a sip. Hot coffee spilled across James's white Italian shirt, a brown stain spreading quickly over the expensive fabric. A few customers gasped, and Lily's eyes went wide. "Oh no, I'm sorry." James expected Emma to shower him with apologies and offer to pay for dry cleaning. Instead, she simply reached under the counter, pulled out a clean apron, and handed it to him. "Here, it'll look better than that shirt all messed up," she said with an amused smile. "Besides, now you have a legitimate excuse for being late to your meeting." "How do you know I have a meeting?" "Because every man in a suit who comes rushing in here at 9:00 inches the morning has a meeting. And they're usually the same ones who try to talk about the weather when it's obvious they're just trying to impress someone." More laughter from the customers. James, holding the apron, wasn't sure if he should be annoyed or impressed by her reply. "Lily, next time you want to help, ask first," Emma told her daughter, but without harshness. "Now go play with your drawings while Mommy works." "Is he going to be mad at me?" Lily asked, looking at James with big eyes. "No, sweetheart." James crouched down to her level. "It was an accident. Accidents happen." Lily smiled in relief and ran to a corner table where paper and colored pencils were scattered. James turned back to Emma, who was already working on the next order. "Thanks for the apron." "You're welcome. And next time, drink your coffee more carefully, or keep your distance from my daughter when she's in helper mode." James laughed, tying the apron over his stained shirt. Noted. On the 47th floor of the Carter Tower, James was trying to focus on the quarterly presentation happening in an hour, but his eyes kept drifting to the window that overlooked the cafe below. Even from that height, he could see the activity at the entrance of Manhattan Brew. It couldn't be a coincidence. Emma living in New York, working in the very building he passed every day, with a daughter wearing the pendant he'd given her 15 years ago. The odds were astronomical. "Ethan," he called through the intercom. His assistant appeared at the door in seconds, tablet in hand and wearing his usual efficient expression. "I need you to discreetly look into someone." Ethan raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. In 5 years working for James, he had learned not to ask unnecessary questions. "Emma, the woman who works at the cafe downstairs, brown hair, has a young daughter. I want to know where she lives, how long she's worked here, her family situation, the basics." "Understood. When do you need it?" "Yesterday." Ethan nodded and left. James looked back out the window, drumming his fingers on the desk. If it really was her, why hadn't she recognized him? Or had she, and she was pretending not to? And the daughter, how old was she? 6? 7? A knot tightened in his stomach. He did a quick calculation in his head and didn't like the answer. Meanwhile, at the cafe, Emma was fighting her own battle. "Wilson!" Barbara's sharp voice, the supervisor, rang out across the place. "My office." Now, Emma sighed, asked Sarah, the other employee, to keep an eye on Lily, and followed Barbara into the small back room. "Sit," Barbara ordered, crossing her arms. She was a woman in her 50s, always wearing an expression like she just sucked on a lemon. "How many times have I told you this is no place for a child?" "Barbara," I explained. "The babysitter canceled last minute, and I couldn't miss work. I don't want to hear your excuses. This is a business, not a daycare. And now your daughter is spilling coffee on customers." Emma felt irritation rising. It was an accident, and the customer didn't complain. "Doesn't matter. Either you fix the situation, or you'll need to find another job. And let me tell you, jobs for people without a college degree aren't exactly easy to come by." The comment about her degree felt like a punch to the gut, but Emma kept her face neutral. Over the years, she had learned that showing vulnerability to people like Barbara was like handing them ammunition for more attacks. "I understand your position," Emma said, standing. "Can I get back to work now?" Barbara waved dismissively, and Emma left the room. Outside, she noticed some nearby customers had overheard the conversation. Her face grew warm with embarrassment. "Hey, don't let her get to you," said a man in his 40s, sipping a cappuccino. "I've got 3 kids. I know how hard it can be." "That's true," agreed a woman at the next table. "That woman treats everyone badly. The other day, she was super rude to me because I asked for a different type of milk." "Thank you," Emma smiled, genuinely touched by the solidarity. "You're very kind." "Your daughter is adorable," said another customer. "She came over to show me the picture she drew. A family of 3 holding hands. Very sweet." Emma looked over at Lily, who had returned to her table and was now drawing intently, her tongue sticking out in concentration. Her heart warmed, and she decided that for today, that was what mattered. "Lily does that a lot," she told the customers. "I think she wants to be an artist when she grows up, or a diplomat." The man laughed. "She convinced the security guard over there to let her use his pen to draw." Emma looked and saw Lily showing something to the guard, who smiled and waved at her. Even in difficult circumstances, her daughter managed to brighten people's days. It was a gift Emma envied. Ethan returned to James's office 2 hours later, his tablet loaded with information. "I got the basic details," he said, placing the tablet on the desk. "Emma Wilson, 32 years old, single, lives in Queens, rents an apartment. She's been working here for 8 months. Morning shift. Also works part-time at a laundromat 3 blocks away. 1 child, Lily Wilson, 6 years old." James skimmed the information quickly. "Nothing about the girl's father?" "Not in the records. From what I could quietly find out, she's been raising her daughter alone from the start." "And the pendant the girl wears?" Ethan frowned. "Pendant? Never mind," James muttered, realizing how odd that sounded. "Anything else?" "Just that she seems to be a good employee. Never missed a day. Never late. And customers like her. Aside from today's incident with the supervisor." "What incident?" Ethan recounted the conversation he'd overheard about Barbara threatening to fire Emma because of her daughter. James felt a pang of guilt, since, technically, the whole thing had started when Lily spilled coffee on him. Anything else? Only a personal observation. Ethan hesitated. This kind of digging into employees, it's not your usual style. Mind if I ask why? James looked out the window again. Down below, he could see Emma wiping tables in the cafe's outdoor seating area. Lily playing nearby. It's complicated, Ethan, and maybe I'm imagining connections that aren't there. The pendant could be common, Ethan said, as if reading his thoughts. Jewelry stores sell thousands just like it. James nodded but wasn't convinced. Something about the way Lily had said, "Mommy gave it to me and said it's important," kept echoing in his mind. And now, watching Emma from a distance, all the memories of that long-ago summer came rushing back. He needed to be sure one way or another. Over the next 3 days, James developed an odd routine for a CEO, heading downstairs to stretch his legs every day between 10 and 10. 30 inches the morning, exactly when Lily was most energetic and chatting with everyone in the cafe. On Monday, he arrived while she was explaining to an elderly customer why cats were better than dogs. On Tuesday, she was teaching a businesswoman how to make paper airplanes out of napkins, and on Wednesday, she had convinced 2 security guards to join a drawing contest. "You again," Emma said when she saw him approaching the counter for the 3rd time that week. "Let me guess, large Americano?" "Actually, today I'll have a cappuccino," James smiled, watching Lily, who had just figured out how to make the sugar dispenser play music by tapping it with a spoon. "Your daughter is very creative." "That's a polite way to put it." Emma laughed, grabbing a cup. "Lily, stop making music with the utensils." "But it sounds nice, Mom. Listen." Lily tapped out a rhythmic beat that was surprisingly melodic. Some customers clapped, and she gave a theatrical bow. James couldn't help but laugh. "She definitely has personality," he commented. Emma studied him for a moment. "Can I ask you something? Why does a man like you keep showing up here? I mean, I'm sure you have plenty of coffee options in the city." James felt his face warm. "A man like me, you know, rich, important, probably has an assistant who can fetch coffee for him." Emma finished making the cappuccino and set it on the counter. As he reached for his wallet, James tried to come up with an answer that wouldn't sound completely crazy. "Actually, I'm almost certain you're the woman I met 15 years ago and never forgot, and your daughter is wearing the pendant I gave you. Maybe I just like the atmosphere," he said, handing her a $10 bill. "It's authentic." "Authentic?" Emma repeated, giving him the change. "That's a new one." Lily appeared beside James, tugging at his dress pants. "Can I tell you a secret?" She whispered loudly enough for half the cafe to hear. "Lily," Emma warned, "Mom thinks you're handsome, but she told Aunt Sarah that men in suits are trouble." The silence that followed was broken only by the espresso machine. Emma closed her eyes, clearly wishing the floor would swallow her whole. "Lily Wilson, you're going a week without drawing if you don't stop talking nonsense." "But it's true," Lily protested. "You said he has interesting eyes." James tried to hide his smile, but it was impossible. "Interesting eyes? Please ignore my daughter, who has apparently decided to become a professional gossip," Emma said. Her cheeks flushed as she went back to work. "Anything else you need besides the cappuccino?" Before James could answer, his phone rang. It was Ethan. "Excuse me," he said, picking up. "Hi, Ethan." "James. The meeting with the Japanese investors was moved up to 11. You need to come up now." James glanced at his watch. 10:45. "All right, I'm on my way." He hung up and looked at Emma, an idea forming in his mind. "Actually, there is something you can do for me." 45 minutes later, Emma was in the elevator, holding a tray of coffee and trying not to panic. What had started as a simple request, "Can you bring a coffee up to my office once things calm down here?" now felt like a questionable decision. The elevator stopped on the 47th floor, and the doors opened to reveal a space that looked straight out of an architecture magazine. Marble floors, glass walls, modern art hanging in perfect symmetry, and a breathtaking view of Manhattan. "Wow," she murmured, walking toward the reception desk. "Can I help you?" asked a receptionist, impeccably dressed. "I brought coffee for Mr. Carter from the cafe downstairs." The receptionist gave her a strange look, as if Emma had said she came to feed the unicorns, but pointed toward a hallway. "Last door on the right." Emma walked down the corridor, taking in the expensive paintings and plants that probably cost more than her monthly rent. She stopped in front of a massive wooden door with a gold plaque, James Carter, CEO. She knocked lightly. "Come in," came his voice from the other side. Emma pushed the door open and almost dropped the tray. The office was larger than her entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city. There was a sitting area with Italian leather sofas, and James's desk was a one-of-a-kind glass and metal piece that probably cost more than her car. "Wow," she said without thinking. "Wow." James was on the phone, but motioned for her to come in. Emma stepped carefully toward the desk, trying not to trip over the Persian rug covering part of the floor. "Yes, I understand," James was saying into the phone. "Confirm for Monday." Then he hung up and smiled at Emma. "Thanks for coming up. You can set it right here on the desk." Emma stepped closer to the desk, which was covered in papers, 2 open laptops, and several expensive pens scattered around. She tried to find a free spot for the tray when her eyes landed on a framed photo. A younger James on some beach, smiling at the camera with his arm around her. The shock made her hands wobble, and the tray tilted. The sugar packets she had brought scattered, some falling directly onto the open laptop keyboard. "Oh no," she exclaimed, trying to grab them. "I'm so sorry." "Don't worry about it," James said quickly, standing to help. "It's nothing." But Emma barely heard him. Her eyes were locked on the photo. It was her, no doubt. Younger, with longer hair, wearing a blue blouse she remembered perfectly. And next to her, a younger James with the same smile he was trying to hide now. "Emma, are you all right?" Before she could answer, the office door opened, and a woman walked in without knocking. Tall, blonde, wearing a tailored suit that probably cost more than Emma's monthly salary. "James, I need you to sign these." The woman stopped when she saw Emma, her expression shifting instantly. "Oh, Olivia," James said, and Emma caught a note of tension in his voice. Emma was just bringing coffee. Olivia looked Emma up and down with an expression that was somehow both condescending and territorial. "Emma," she repeated slowly. "Emma Wilson." Emma blinked in surprise. "You know me?" "Of course I do." Olivia smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "You used to live on Elm Street, right?" "2 houses down from my cousin Maria. I was there all the time." Emma's stomach tightened. Elm Street had been where she lived during her teenage years, in a small house she shared with her mother and 2 brothers. They weren't memories she liked to revisit. "That was a long time ago," Emma said carefully. "It was," Olivia agreed, stepping closer. "Funny how people change, isn't it? Some for the better, others." She shrugged. "Well, at least you managed to get a job downstairs." The implication was clear, and Emma felt her face grow hot with indignation. "Olivia," James began, but she ignored him. "It's interesting," Olivia went on, toying with an expensive pen. "A girl from Elm Street, now personally bringing coffee to the CEO. Some might say that's convenient." "What exactly are you implying?" Emma asked, dropping any pretense of politeness. "I'm not implying anything," Olivia said with an innocent smile. "I just find it curious how certain people always seem to find ways to get close to successful men, especially single mothers who need to support their children." The silence that followed was tense. Emma felt anger rising in her chest, but before she could answer, James stepped between them. "Olivia, that's enough." "Relax, James." Olivia laughed. "I'm sure Emma understands I'm just making an observation. After all, it's not the first time I've seen this kind of strategy." Emma picked up the empty tray and headed for the door. "My coffee's paid for and delivered. Can I get back to work now?" "Emma, wait," James called, but she was already leaving. Out in the hallway, Emma took a deep breath, trying to steady the trembling in her hands. The photo on James's desk, Olivia's poisonous comments, the way he had been showing up at the cafe every day. Something very strange was going on, and Emma had the feeling she was being manipulated in a way she couldn't quite understand yet. Emma had barely reached the ground floor when she heard the sharp sound of high heels quickly coming down the emergency stairs. Olivia burst into the lobby like a blonde hurricane, clearly determined not to let the conversation end upstairs. "Emma," she called, loud enough for half the cafe to look over. "You forgot to bring your tray back." Emma stopped, realizing several people had paused their conversations to watch. Among them, she recognized a few executives who frequented the cafe and some regular customers. "Thank you," Emma said simply, holding out her hand to take the tray. But Olivia wasn't interested in a quiet exchange. Instead, she raised her voice even more. "You know, folks," she said to the growing audience, "I just witnessed something very interesting upstairs. Our cafe employee here had a private meeting with the CEO." Emma felt her stomach drop. It wasn't a meeting. I just delivered coffee. Of course, of course. Olivia laughed. That's what they all say. I was just delivering coffee. Funny how these coincidences always seem to involve women who are, how shall I put it, in need. A murmur started to ripple through the crowd. Emma saw Sarah, her co-worker, step out from behind the counter with a worried expression. Excuse me? One of the executives asked. What exactly are you talking about? Olivia smiled like a cat that had found a mouse. Well, isn't it obvious? A single mother working 2 jobs suddenly gets direct access to the CEO's office. Do you think that's professional? Emma felt her face burn but forced herself to stay calm. Can I know what your problem is with me? My problem? Olivia feigned surprise. I have no problem at all. I just think it's interesting to observe how some people operate, especially when they have children to support and, well, few options. Hold on. A regular customer, Mrs. Lee, stood from her table. What exactly are you implying? I'm not implying anything, Olivia said, raising her hands dramatically. I'm just saying it's curious how certain women always find ways to get close to men with money, especially when they're desperate. The tense silence was broken by a laugh. To everyone's surprise, it came from Emma. Wow, she said, shaking her head. You really practiced that speech in the mirror before running down here, didn't you? A few customers chuckled quietly. Olivia frowned. Excuse me? Emma crossed her arms and smiled. I'm just impressed by your level of dedication. I mean, you ran down the stairs, everyone saw you out of breath just to make a scene about me taking coffee upstairs. That's intense. More laughter now, louder this time. Olivia's face began to turn red. I'm not making a scene. You're not? Emma looked around. Because where I come from, when someone puts on a show like this in the middle of a cafe, we call it drama. Or maybe envy. Hard to tell. Envy? Olivia nearly shouted. Of you? I don't know. Emma shrugged. You're the one who chased me down here to talk about my life. I didn't chase you to talk about yours. The impromptu audience began murmuring their approval. Sarah started clapping slowly, and others joined in. Look, Emma continued. I don't know what your history with Mr. Carter is, but I can assure you it has nothing to do with me. I work here. I do my job, and I go home to take care of my daughter. If that bothers you so much, maybe the problem isn't me. You don't know anything. Olivia exploded. You don't know James like I do. Women like you always show up trying to take advantage of successful men. Women like me? Emma repeated, her voice turning colder, who work honestly to support their children. Just then, Lily came running from the children's playground in the cafe's courtyard. She had heard raised voices and came to investigate. Mom, she asked, sensing the tension, why is everyone staring? Olivia saw an opportunity and pointed at the little girl. And there's the proof. A child without a father, being raised by a mother who clearly can't manage without. Stop, Lily shouted, startling everyone with the strength in her small voice. Stop yelling at my mom. She planted herself in front of Emma, fists clenched, wearing a furious expression that was almost comical on her 6-year-old face. My mom is the best mom in the world, Lily went on, her voice carrying across the cafe. She works really hard to take care of me, and you're a mean person for talking like that. A collective awe rippled through the crowd. Olivia, clearly not expecting to be challenged by a child, hesitated. Lily, honey, Emma began, trying to calm her, but Lily wasn't done. With the straightforward logic of a 6-year-old, she looked around at all the watching faces and made a decision that would change everything. And besides, she said, pointing at James, who had just stepped out of the elevator after hearing the commotion, my daddy is going to be really mad if you keep yelling at my mommy. The silence that followed was absolute. Every person in the cafe turned to stare at James, who froze in the middle of the lobby as if he'd been hit. Emma felt the blood drain from her face. Lily, don't daddy, Olivia repeated, her voice shooting up an octave. Daddy? The murmuring spread through the cafe like wildfire. People began whispering urgently to each other, some pulling out their phones to record. Wait, one of the executives said slowly. James Carter has a daughter with the cafe employee? Another added, and never acknowledged her? A third voice asked, horrified. James stood rooted to the spot, clearly in shock. His eyes moved from Lily to Emma, then to the crowd of accusing faces around him. This is, he began, but his voice faltered. This is disgusting, Mrs. Lee said, shaking her head. A rich man who won't even acknowledge his own child. What kind of person does that? Another customer chimed in. Lily, realizing from the silence and the adult's expressions that she'd said something wrong, started to tear up. I just wanted her to stop yelling, she said softly. Emma crouched down and scooped Lily into her arms, feeling the weight of all those stares. James was still frozen in place, struggling to process what had just happened. I can't believe this, Olivia said. Though now her voice had a different edge, she no longer sounded triumphant. Just stunned. James, is this true? All eyes turned to him. Emma could see the turmoil in his face. Confusion, shock, and something else she couldn't quite place. James looked from Lily to Emma. It's not what it looks like. A wave of disapproval rose immediately from the crowd. Then what is it? A young executive demanded, because it looks like you have a 6-year-old daughter you've never acknowledged. And her mom's working down here serving coffee. A woman added. While you live in a penthouse, James opened his mouth to explain, but Emma stepped forward. Come on, Lily, she said, heading toward the exit. We're going home. Mom, Lily whispered as they walked away. Did he mess up? Emma didn't answer. She couldn't. Because as they crossed the lobby, feeling the sting of every pitying and judgmental glance, she knew her life, and Lily's had changed completely in a matter of seconds, and James Carter, standing in the middle of the chaos, looked as lost as she felt. Emma had barely made it home when the doorbell rang. Peering through the peephole, she saw James standing in the hallway of her building, clearly uncomfortable in the modest surroundings with its peeling walls. Mom, who is it? Lily called, running from the living room where she'd been watching cartoons. Stay there, Emma said, opening the door just a crack. What do you want? We need to talk, James said, glancing nervously around. Please. 5 minutes. Emma hesitated, then opened the door fully. Come in before Mrs. Thompson from 3B starts asking questions. James stepped into the small apartment, his eyes taking in everything. The cramped living room with its second-hand couch, the dining table that doubled as Lily's homework desk, the damp stains on the walls half covered by her daughter's drawings. Have a seat, she said, motioning to the couch. Lily, go play in your room for a bit. But I want to stay, Lily protested. He's my friend now, Lily. The girl pouted but obeyed, not before waving to James, who waved back with a tense smile. Emma sat in the armchair across from him, arms crossed. Just say it. I have to be at the laundromat in 2 hours. James took a deep breath. About what happened today at the cafe. Lily's a child. Children say silly things. You don't need to worry. But now everyone thinks she's my daughter. Emma let out a humorless laugh. And the problem is that now my reputation is ruined. Everyone thinks I'm an irresponsible father who abandons his children. Oh, of course. Emma shook her head. That's what you're worried about. Your reputation. It's not just that. James leaned forward. It's that. Look, I know this sounds crazy, but I need your help. Emma raised an eyebrow. Your help? I need you to pretend to be my girlfriend for a month. The silence that followed was so complete you could hear Lily humming in the bedroom. Emma blinked several times, as if she were processing a foreign language. You what? Think about it, James said quickly. If we say we're dating, that we're in a serious relationship, it explains everything. Lily calls me dad because we're a family. You're not a single mom trying to take advantage of me, and I'm not an absent father. Emma stood up. You've completely lost your mind. Emma, listen. No. She pointed to the door. Get out of my house. I have enough problems without pretending to date some rich lunatic. James stood up too. I'll pay you. That made Emma stop. What? I'll pay you well, $50,000 for the whole month. Just to pretend we're dating. Show up with me at a few events. Let a few photos circulate. Make everyone believe we're a happy couple. Emma felt the air leave her lungs. To $50,000 was more than she made in 2 years working both of her jobs. You're serious? Completely. Think of the possibilities. You could pay off debts, maybe even go to college. Lily could have a better life. Emma slowly sat back down. Why me? Why not hire a professional actress? James hesitated. Because Lily already called me dad. People already believed the story. And because you seem real, genuine. There was something in his voice Emma couldn't quite place, but she was too busy doing mental math. Megan. She could pay off all her overdue bills, put Lily in a better school, maybe even start studying again. And what exactly would this involve? Nothing much, James said quickly. A few dinners, social events, maybe some photos together. You'd keep working as usual, Lily would keep going to her school. Just when we're in public, we'd act like a couple. And sleeping arrangements? Where would we stay? In our own homes. We'd only see each other when necessary. Emma bit her lower lip, thinking, 1 month, 30 days. After that, we'd break up amicably and go our separate ways. You with $50,000 in the bank. Before Emma could answer, her phone rang. It was the building manager's number. "Excuse me," she said, picking up. "Hello, Miss Wilson. This is from the building management. We have an update about the rent adjustment." Emma's stomach tightened. "What update?" "The increase will be 40%, not 20, as we previously said. The new amount takes effect next month." Emma felt the world spin. 40%? That's impossible. I can't pay that. I'm sorry, but it's the owner's new policy. If you can't pay, you'll need to vacate the apartment. Emma hung up, her hands trembling. 40% meant an extra $300 a month. Money she simply didn't have. James, who had overheard the conversation, was watching her with an almost guilty expression. "Problems?" Emma laughed. But it was a desperate laugh. "The rent is going up 40%. If I can't pay, Lily and I will be living under a bridge." "Emma, all right," she said suddenly. "I'll do it." "You will?" "Your crazy proposal. I'll do it. 1 month pretending to be your girlfriend for $50,000. James smiled, clearly relieved. "Really? But I have conditions." Emma raised a finger. "Lily cannot know it's pretend. For her, we have to be convincing, and the second you do anything that hurts or confuses her, the deal is over." "Of course, I completely agree. And no, you know, nothing physical beyond what's absolutely necessary to convince people. Obviously." Emma held out her hand. "Then we have a deal." James shook her hand, and Emma felt a strange jolt at the contact. She ignored the sensation. "When do we start?" "Tomorrow. I'll pick you both up for brunch. I need some people to see us together." That's when Lily appeared in the bedroom doorway, clearly having overheard part of the conversation. "Mom, are you two really going to be boyfriend and girlfriend?" Emma and James looked at each other. Emma nodded slowly. Yes, sweetheart. We've decided to give it a try." Lily clapped her hands, excited. "That's great." Then she stopped, frowning with an expression far too serious for a 6-year-old. "But wait. If you're dating, where's everyone going to sleep?" Emma felt her face grow warm. "What do you mean, honey?" "Well, on TV, when people date, they live in the same house. So, is he going to sleep here on our couch, or are we going to sleep at his place? Because I saw in a magazine that rich people's houses have pools, and it would be amazing to swim every night." James choked, and Emma realized that part of the arrangement hadn't been discussed. "Lily," she began. "Relationships are complicated. Adults, sometimes. Mom." Lily interrupted with the exaggerated patience children use when they think adults are being silly. "If you're a couple, you have to live together. Everybody knows that." Emma glanced at James, who looked just as lost as she did. "She's got a point," he said slowly. "If we want people to believe we're a serious couple, it probably makes sense to live together. You're suggesting Lily and I move into your house? Why not?" "It's big enough. Lily can have her own room, and it would be more convincing." Lily started bouncing. "I can have my own room with a big bed and everything." Emma felt the situation slipping out of her control. "I'm not sure that's a good idea." "Please, Mom." Lily grabbed her hands. "It'll be like having a real family." The words hit Emma like a punch. Like having a real family. It was everything Lily had ever wanted, and everything Emma had always known she couldn't give her. "All right," she said, ignoring the voice in her head screaming that this was a terrible idea. 1 month. But if this turns into a mess, it's your fault. She pointed at James. "Understood," he said with a smile. "Welcome to the Carter family." Lily squealed with joy and ran to hug James, who scooped her up with a natural ease that surprised Emma. Looking at the two of them together, Emma had the strange feeling she was about to step into much deeper waters than she'd imagined. James's penthouse took up the top 2 floors of the Carter Tower and had a 360-degree view of Manhattan. Emma stood in the entryway for a moment, holding the 2 suitcases that contained her and Lily's entire lives, trying to process that they would be living there for the next 30 days. "Mom, look." Lily had dropped her backpack and was running through the open space. "There's a staircase inside the house. Careful, Lily," Emma called automatically, then turned to James. "Can she touch everything?" James laughed. "It's a home, not a museum. Let her explore." "You don't know Lily exploring." Emma muttered, but followed them into the main living area. What she saw made her stop again. Beyond the expensive furniture and the breathtaking view, there was something James had clearly done with Lily in mind. A pile of brand new toys in one corner, children's books on the coffee table, and what looked like a tablet loaded with educational games. "You bought all this?" James rubbed the back of his neck, clearly a little embarrassed. "I thought she might need a few things. I don't know much about kids." Before Emma could answer, Lily came running from what was apparently the kitchen. "Mom, there's a fridge that talks." "What do you mean, talks?" "It said door open when I opened it, and it has a screen like a computer." Emma looked at James. "Your fridge is smarter than my car. Probably more expensive, too," he said without thinking, then realized how it sounded. "Sorry, I didn't mean relax," Emma laughed. "It's true." Maria, James's housekeeper, appeared in the room carrying their bags. "Mr. Carter, where would you like me to put the ladies' luggage?" "The main guest room for Emma, and Lily can have the blue room. It gets the most light." Lily stopped examining the toys. "Maria is a pretty name. Do you live here too?" "No, sweetheart." Maria smiled. "I come every day to take care of Mr. Rude. Carter's home, and now I'll be taking care of you, too." "Cool." Lily clapped her hands. "Do you know how to make pancakes, Lily?" Emma warned. "Don't go asking people for things." "It's all right," Maria said. "And yes, I do. How about we make some together tomorrow morning?" Lily squealed and hugged Maria's legs, clearly melting her heart with the display of affection. "She's adorable," Maria whispered to Emma. "How long have you two been together?" Emma opened her mouth, not sure what to say. But James spoke first. "We're still figuring things out. It's recent." Maria nodded with understanding. "Relationships with children involved do take time, but you two make a nice couple." After Maria left to get the rooms ready, James showed the apartment to Emma and Lily. The little girl was absolutely fascinated by everything. The hot tub, the walk-in closet that was bigger than their old living room, and especially the indoor pool. "Can I swim now?" she asked, already kicking off her shoes. "Lily, you didn't bring a swimsuit," Emma said. "She can swim in her clothes," James offered. "Or we can buy swimsuits tomorrow." "Really?" Lily looked at Emma, eyes shining. "You can, but just for a few minutes, and I'll be right here watching." While Lily played in the shallow water, Emma and James sat on nearby lounge chairs. "Thank you," Emma said, "for all this. I know it must feel strange to have strangers in your home." "You're not strangers," James replied, then seemed to realize the weight of his words. "I mean, Lily's an amazing kid. And you? You seem to handle change well." "I was born and raised adapting," Emma said simply. "That's what single mothers do." They were interrupted by Lily's shout. "James, come see how I can swim on my back." James looked at Emma, who nodded, and he walked over to the pool. Emma watched them interact. James, clearly inexperienced with kids but trying, and Lily, just being Lily, naturally charming and talkative. "Do you have kids?" Lily asked suddenly. "No," James said. "You're my first experience with children. Mom said you're rich." "Don't rich people have kids?" Emma nearly choked on her water. "Lily, it's a fair question." James laughed. "And the answer is, some do, some don't. I was too busy working. But now you have us." James looked at Emma over Lily's head. "Yeah, now I have you." That first night, Emma discovered that cooking in James's kitchen was like trying to operate a spaceship. The stove had a digital screen with more options than an airplane cockpit. The fridge actually spoke every time someone came near it. And there were gadgets she couldn't even guess the use of. "Need help?" James asked, finding her standing in front of the oven, clearly lost. "How do you turn this thing on?" Emma pointed at what looked like an oven, but had so many buttons it could have been a lab device. James stepped closer, and she caught the scent of his cologne, something expensive and masculine that made her stomach give a small jolt. "You just touch here," he said, reaching an arm around her to tap the screen. "See? Then you set the temperature here and the time here." Emma was very aware of how close he was. "This is more complicated than my job. You'll get used to it. Or you could ask Maria to cook." "No," Emma said firmly. "I'm not turning into some spoiled princess just because I'm living in a penthouse for a month." James smiled in a way that made her heart speed up. "I admire that about you." Before Emma could ask what he meant, Lily came running in. "Mom, James, I found something amazing." They followed her to the pool, where Emma stopped in horror. Lily had found the laundry detergent kept in a laundry room next to the pool area and dumped half of it into the water. The pool was now filled with foam, looking like a giant bubble bath. "Lily," Emma shouted, "what did you do?" "I made a bubble pool. Look how cool it is." The water was completely white with foam, and Lily was in the middle of it, covered head to toe in bubbles, grinning as if she'd just discovered the eighth wonder of the world. James stayed silent for a moment, then burst out laughing, real belly laughter, bending forward. "I don't see what's so funny," Emma said, though she was struggling not to laugh herself. "How are we going to clean this up?" "I have no idea," James said between laughs, "but I have to admit, it's creative." Lily dove under and came up completely covered in bubbles. "Do you guys want to come in? It feels amazing." "Absolutely not," Emma said, but couldn't help laughing when Lily made a foam angel, moving her arms and legs as if she were in snow. "It's going to take hours to get all this foam out," Emma said, still laughing. "I'll clean it, Emma. It's my fault for not keeping an eye on her." "We'll clean it," James corrected. "She's our responsibility now, remember?" By the third day, Emma was starting to get used to the strange routine of living in a penthouse. When James had an important video conference, he'd asked her and Lily to stay in their rooms during the meeting. But Lily had other plans. Emma was in the bathroom when she heard James speaking in formal English to what were clearly important people. Seconds later, she heard Lily. "Hi." The girl's cheerful voice rang through the office. "Are you James's friends?" Emma rushed out of the bathroom and found Lily sitting on James's lap, waving at the computer screen where several people in suits stared back with surprised expressions. "Sorry," James said to the screen, clearly embarrassed. "This is Lily. I'm his daughter." Lily announced happily, "Well, not really yet. But he's dating my mom, so it's going to be like he's my stepdad." Emma could see the faces on the screen shift from surprise to interest. A woman smiled. "How sweet. How old are you, dear?" 6.5. Lily held up her fingers. "And James is really nice. He let me swim in his pool and didn't get mad when I put soap in the water." "Lily!" Emma appeared on the screen, pulling the girl away. "Sorry, James." She slipped away. "Hi, Mom." Lily waved. "I'm meeting James's friends." One of the men on the screen laughed. "Looks like you've got your hands full, Carter." "Yeah." "Right." James smiled, running a hand through his hair. "Sorry for the interruption." Once Emma got Lily out of the room, James returned to the meeting, but he could still hear his colleagues' comments about how refreshing it was to see him in a family moment and how adorable Lily was. That night at dinner, Emma watched James and Lily chatting about the drawings she had made during the day. There was something different about the way he looked at them, more attentive, more affectionate. "Mom, tell James about the pendant," Lily said suddenly. Emma felt her blood run cold. "Lily," she said, "it's really special." Lily went on, unaware of the tension she had just created. "It was from someone very important." James stopped cutting his food, his eyes fixed on Emma. "Really?" Emma nervously adjusted the pendant around Lily's neck, avoiding his gaze. "It's a family heirloom." "What kind of heirloom?" Lily leaned forward, eager to tell the story. "Mom said someone very special gave it to her when she was young. And one day, when I'm older, she'll tell me the whole story." James set his fork down. Emma could feel his eyes on her, but she couldn't look at him. "Must be an interesting story," he said slowly. "It is," Lily agreed. "Mom always gets this strange look when she talks about it, like she's sad and happy at the same time." Emma finally met James's eyes and saw something there that made her heart race. Recognition, certainty, and something else she couldn't quite name. But that made her feel like she was 18 again, in love with a boy she knew she could never have. "Lily," she said quickly, standing up, "how about we get some ice cream and watch a movie?" "Yay." Lily jumped up and ran to the living room. Emma began clearing the plates, but James gently caught her wrist. "Emma," he said softly, "we need to talk." She swallowed hard. "About what?" "You know what." Emma pulled her arm back gently. "I don't know what you're talking about." But as she followed Lily into the living room, she knew her time was up. James had figured out the truth, and now she wasn't sure if she was pretending to date her daughter's father or the man who had broken her heart 15 years ago. Or worse, if they were the same person. "I can't wear this," Emma said for the 5th time, looking at the navy blue gown James had sent over. "It costs more than my car." "You don't have a car," Lily pointed out from Emma's bed, watching her get ready for the charity gala. "And it's really pretty." "She's right," James said from the bedroom doorway. "You look beautiful." Emma turned toward him, adjusting the neckline for the 100th time. The dress really was stunning. fabric that felt like water sliding over her skin, a cut that flattered her curves without being revealing, but it also cost more than she made in 6 months. "I'm sure I'm going to spill something or tear something." "You won't," James said, stepping closer and, much to her surprise, tucking a loose strand of hair back into the elegant style Maria had insisted on. "You're going to be perfect." His touch was so gentle, Emma felt her skin tingle. "How can you be so sure?" "Because," he said, lowering his voice, "you've always been perfect at everything you've done." Emma looked at him, sensing there was more meaning behind those words than she was ready to face. "Am I going to?" Lily asked hopefully. "No, honey," Emma said, snapping out of her thoughts. "You're staying with Maria. She said you two are going to make cookies. Can I make some for you to take to the party?" "You don't take cookies to a gala." James laughed. "But you can make some for when we get back." Lily clapped her hands and ran off to find Maria. Emma was left alone with James, suddenly very aware of how close they seemed in that moment. "Ready?" he asked, offering his arm. As ready as anyone can be to pretend to be a millionaire's girlfriend at a party full of important people. Emma sighed, taking his arm. The charity gala was being held in the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, and Emma had never seen so much luxury in one place. Baccarat crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Tables were covered in linens that probably cost more than her old rent, and the guests looked as though they'd stepped straight out of a fashion magazine. "Breathe," James whispered when he felt her stiffen beside him. "They're just people. People who could buy my whole life with the change in their pockets." Emma murmured back. "People who are dying to meet the woman who captured Manhattan's most eligible bachelor," a warm female voice said behind them. They turned to find an elegant woman in her 50s, wearing a genuinely friendly smile. "James, dear, aren't you going to introduce me?" "Of course," James smiled. "Margaret Thompson. This is Emma Wilson." "Emma, Margaret is the president of the foundation we're supporting tonight." "It's a pleasure to meet you," Margaret said, extending her hand. "I have to say, James has been completely different since you two have been together. I've never seen him so human." Emma laughed, relaxing a little. "He's still learning to live with a 6-year-old. Yesterday, Lily convinced him to have a pillow fight." "A pillow fight?" Margaret laughed out loud. "James Carter in a pillow fight?" "I'll need photos to believe that." "Please don't give her any ideas," James said. But he was smiling. As the night went on, Emma was surprised to find she was actually enjoying herself. People were warmer than she expected. Her stories about Lily brought genuine laughter. And James was the perfect date, attentive without being overbearing, including her in conversations. Always with a hand on her back or touching her arm in a natural way. "You're a natural at this," he said, when they had a quiet moment at the bar. "A natural at what?" "At making people feel good. Look around," he gestured subtly. "Everyone you've spoken to is smiling more than when they arrived." Emma glanced around and saw he was right. "It's just being friendly." "No, it's more than that. You have a gift." Before Emma could ask what he meant, the music shifted to something slower and more romantic. "Want to dance?" James offered his hand. Emma hesitated. "I'm not sure I know how to dance to this kind of music." "I'll teach you." On the dance floor, James drew her into his arms with such ease that Emma's heart skipped a beat. He was an excellent dancer, guiding her with smooth movements that made it feel like she actually knew what she was doing. "Relax," he murmured when he felt her tension. "Let me lead." She let herself relax in his arms and, for a moment, forgot it was all an act. It was just her and James dancing as though they were meant for it. "Emma," James said softly, and there was something different in his voice. "I need to tell you, James." A voice interrupted. Olivia was approaching across the dance floor, glowing in a red dress that clearly cost a fortune. "May I steal him for a dance?" Emma and James stepped apart, the moment broken. "Of course," Emma said, hiding her irritation. "Thank you." Olivia smiled, though there was something calculating in her eyes. "It's a tradition at the company. I always dance with James at these events." Emma stepped off the floor and went to the bar for a glass of water. Through the crowd, she could see James and Olivia dancing. Olivia speaking animatedly, while James seemed to be politely listening. "Be careful with her," a voice said beside her. Emma turned to see a man in his 40s with a friendly smile. "Nathan Lee, James's assistant. And you must be the famous Emma." "Famous?" "James hasn't talked about anything else all week." Emma said this. "Lily did that." Nathan chuckled. "It's refreshing to see him like this." "Like what?" "Happy. Truly happy. Not just successful." Emma glanced toward the dance floor. "Why did you say I should be careful with Olivia?" "Because she's been in love with James for years, and she doesn't take competition very well. And you, my dear, are the first woman he's ever taken seriously. Well, ever. Before Emma could fully process that, Olivia appeared beside her. James was no longer on the dance floor. "Emma," Olivia said brightly, "what a beautiful dress. May I take a closer look at the details?" Emma frowned, confused, but turned so Olivia could see the back of her dress. That's when she felt a sharp tug. Ouch! She turned and saw that one of Olivia's bracelets had snagged the delicate fabric, tearing it from the shoulder almost down to the waist. "Oh no!" Olivia exclaimed theatrically. "How did that happen? What a shame." Emma could feel eyes on her from all around, with a few people whispering. The dress was clearly ruined, and now her back was basically exposed in the middle of a high society gala. "These things happen," Emma said, keeping her voice steady despite the heat of humiliation in her cheeks. "Accidents happen. Maybe you should head home," Olivia suggested with fake concern. "It can't be comfortable staying like that." Emma felt anger rising, but before she could respond, she remembered something: the silk scarf Maria had insisted she bring, in case it got chilly. She had left it on the table. "You know what?" Emma said loudly enough for several people to hear. "You're right. This is uncomfortable." She walked to her table, grabbed the golden scarf, and, in front of at least 50 people, tied it creatively around her torso, turning the ruined dress into something that looked intentional. The gold silk contrasted beautifully with the navy blue, creating a unique, elegant look. "There," she said, returning to where Olivia stood. "Much better. Thanks for the suggestion." The people nearby started clapping. A woman stepped forward. "Dear, that's brilliant. Where did you learn to do that?" "Necessity," Emma smiled. "When you have a 6-year-old daughter and a tight budget, you learn to improvise." More applause followed. Soon, Emma was surrounded by people asking about her styling techniques and praising her creativity. In the crowd, she caught a flash from a camera. "Sorry," said the photographer, a young man with a press badge, "for the Time Society column. May I have your name?" "Emma Wilson." She answered automatically. James appeared beside her, clearly having heard about what happened. "Are you okay?" he asked, placing a protective arm around her. "I'm great." Emma smiled, and realized it was true. "Actually, I'm having fun." The rest of the night went by in a blur of conversations, laughter, and dancing. Emma felt more confident than she had in years, and James didn't leave her side, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. The next morning, Emma woke to James knocking on her bedroom door. "Emma," he called, "you have to see this." She opened the door, still in her robe, hair tousled. "What is it?" James was holding a newspaper, looking somewhere between amused and concerned. "You're in the news." Emma took the paper and felt her stomach drop. On the front page of the society section was a photo of her from the night before, beaming with the golden scarf, James beside her with a look of pure adoration. The headline screamed, "CEO finds love with mysterious single mother, the modern Cinderella who stole Manhattan's heart." "Oh no," Emma whispered. "Oh yes," Lily said, running in, already dressed and clearly excited. "Maria said you're famous. Can I go to school and tell everyone my mom's in the paper?" Emma looked at James, who just shrugged with a smile, part guilty, part proud. "Well," he said, "at least now everyone will really believe we're together." Emma didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Her whole life had changed overnight, and she had no idea how to handle it. But as she looked at the photo, she and James looking genuinely happy and in love, she had to admit one thing. At least it looked real. "You don't understand," Emma burst out, slamming the newspaper onto the breakfast table so hard Lily's orange juice spilled. "My whole life is laid out there for everyone to see." James raised his hands in a calming gesture. "Emma, I know it looks bad. But looks bad?" Emma gave a humorless laugh. "They know where I work, where Lily goes to school, where I used to live. There's a picture of our old house, James, with the address almost visible." Lily stopped eating the pancakes Maria had made and looked between them with wide eyes. "Is Mom mad?" she asked softly. "I'm not mad at you, sweetheart," Emma said, forcing her voice down. "Mom's just worried. Is it because of the picture in the paper?" Lily picked up the paper and studied it. "But you both look nice and happy." James seized on that. "Lily's right. The article is positive. They're talking about how creative you were with the dress, how you win people over, and about me being a mysterious single mom who came out of nowhere." Emma quoted the article. "They make it sound like I'm some gold digger who took advantage of you." "No one who was at the party thought that," James insisted. "You saw how people reacted. Everyone loved you." Emma shook her head and walked to the window. Down below, she could see a few photographers at the building's entrance. There are reporters outside. James, photographers waiting to take more pictures. That wasn't part of the deal. James stood and joined her. I'll take care of it. I'll call my lawyer. Put pressure on the paper to tone down the coverage. I can make them stop. Can you? Emma turned to him. Because it feels like once the snowball started rolling, no one's been able to control it. Before James could answer, his phone rang. It was Ethan. James, we have a problem. His assistant's voice sounded tense, even on speakerphone. The Times wants to do a cover story on you two, and Entertainment Weekly is offering money for an exclusive interview. Emma closed her eyes. Great. Now we're entertainment. Ethan, cancel everything, James said firmly. No interviews, no photos, nothing. And I want our PR team to contact all the major outlets. We're going to control this story. Understood. But James, there's something else. Some reporters are trying to dig into Emma's past. I think you two should be ready for that. Emma felt her blood run cold. What kind of past? Nothing serious, Ethan said quickly. Just the usual curiosity. Where you grew up, past jobs, that kind of thing. When James hung up, Emma sank onto the couch. I didn't sign up for this, she said softly. I don't want strangers picking apart my life. James, sat Basil here. I promise I'll take care of it. I have enough influence to make this story disappear. Do you really? I do. And I'll use all of it to protect you and Lily. Over the next 3 days, James kept his word. Press coverage dropped dramatically. The photographers vanished from the building's entrance, and new stories filled the gossip columns. Emma began to relax, thinking maybe the worst had passed. She was wrong. On Thursday, when she came home from work, she found Maria waiting at the door with a worried expression and an envelope in her hands. It came by registered mail, Maria said. For you specifically. Emma recognized the type of envelope immediately. Official, intimidating, the kind that usually carried bad news. With trembling hands, she opened it and read the heading, Summons, Petition for Joint Custody. No, she whispered, her knees feeling weak. Miss Emma. Maria stepped closer. Is everything all right? Emma quickly scanned the document, each word hitting her like a punch to the stomach. Carlos Rivera, Lily's biological father, was asking for joint custody of the daughter he had abandoned before she was even born. Where's Lily? Emma asked, forcing her voice to stay calm. Playing in her room. Mr. James is in a meeting, but he should be home in an hour. Emma nodded and walked to her bedroom like a zombie, closing the door before allowing herself to panic. Carlos, after 7 years of complete silence, after disappearing when she told him she was pregnant, after never answering a single call or message, he was showing up now. And worse, the document specifically mentioned changes in the mother's financial circumstances and the new environment of wealth as reasons to revisit custody. He had seen the news about her and James. Emma was reading the document for the 4th time when James came home. Emma, he called. Maria said you got something important in the mail. She came out of the bedroom and handed him the papers without a word. She watched his face change as he read. Son of a he stopped himself, glancing toward the hallway where Lily was playing. Who is this Carlos? Lily's biological father, Emma said, sitting in the armchair. He disappeared when he found out I was pregnant, never contacted me again, and now he wants joint custody. Apparently, finding out I'm living with a millionaire reminded him he has a daughter, Emma said with a bitter laugh, or that a daughter could be profitable. James sat on the sofa across from her, still scanning the document. This is ridiculous. He abandoned Lily. No judge, you don't know the system, James, Emma interrupted. Biological fathers have rights, even when they're terrible people, and he has a good lawyer. From the looks of it, how do you know? Emma pointed to the letterhead on the page, Thompson and Associates. They're expensive, very expensive. Someone's paying for this. James frowned. You think before he could finish the question, the intercom rang. Maria answered. Mr. James. Her voice sounded nervous. There's a man downstairs saying he needs to speak to Miss Emma about Lily. He doesn't seem well. Emma and James exchanged glances. It was almost midnight. What's his name? James asked. Carlos Rivera. And he's agitated. Mr. James. The doorman wants to call security. Emma felt fear rise in her throat. He shouldn't be here. He has no right to show up unannounced. James was already picking up the phone. Don't let him up. I'm coming down. No. Emma grabbed his arm. I'll go. I'm the one he wants to talk to. Absolutely not. Not after midnight. Not in the state Maria described. They were interrupted by Lily coming out of her room, rubbing her eyes. "Why are you yelling?" she asked. "And who's on the intercom?" Emma and James froze. How could they explain to a 6-year-old that the father she had never met was at the door, drunk? Before either of them could answer, the intercom rang again. This time it was the doorman's voice, clearly alarmed. "Mr. Carter." The man got into the building. "I think he followed someone in. He's coming up the stairs. Call the police," James ordered. "Now." But it was already too late. They heard heavy footsteps in the hallway, then pounding on the door. "Emma." Carlos's voice echoed in the hall. "I know you're in there. I came to get my daughter." Lily hid behind Emma, clearly frightened. "Mom, who is that man?" More pounding on the door now. Harder. "Emma, open this door," Carlos shouted, his voice slurred from alcohol or drugs. "You think you can hide my daughter from me? You think just because you're living with some rich guy, you can keep me from seeing her?" James positioned himself between Emma, Lily, and the door. "Stay behind me," he whispered. "I saw the pictures." Carlos kept yelling, "My daughter in the paper, living in a penthouse. You had no right." "She's my daughter." Lily started crying softly. "Mom, I'm scared." Emma scooped Lily into her arms, her heart pounding so hard she was sure the little girl could hear it. "Maria, take Lily to your room and lock the door," Emma said quickly. "I don't want to go," Lily sobbed. "I don't want the angry man to take you away." The pounding grew more frantic. "Open this door, or I'll break it down," Carlos roared. "I came to get what's mine. You can't hide her from me forever." James grabbed the phone and called building security directly. "Penthouse apartment. We have an agitated man trying to break in." "Where's the police?" "On the way, Mr. Carter." 2 minutes. 2 minutes that felt like forever, with Carlos shouting threats outside, Lily crying in Emma's arms, and James standing like a guard between his makeshift family and the danger. When they finally heard sirens and police voices in the hallway, Emma knew her life had changed forever again, and this time, she wasn't sure James or anyone could protect them from what was coming. Carlos's shouts stopped abruptly when the officers' voices echoed in the corridor. Emma heard a commotion outside, orders being given, Carlos mumbling protests, and finally the sound of handcuffs. "Mr. Carter," an authoritative voice called from the other side. "NYPD. Is everything okay in there?" James looked at Emma, who was still holding a trembling Lily. Before moving toward the door, "We're fine," he answered, "but I won't open until I know he's been taken away." "Understood, sir. The individual is in custody. We'll need a statement." 15 minutes later, when they finally opened the door, Emma's legs nearly gave out in relief. Carlos was gone, leaving only 2 uniformed officers in the hall. "Mrs. Wilson," the older officer asked. "I'm Sergeant Garcia. We need to understand what happened here." Over the next hour, Emma explained about the court summons, Carlos's abandonment, and his sudden reappearance. James stayed by her side the whole time, steady and protective. "Mr. Rivera was clearly under the influence," the sergeant noted. "He'll spend the night in jail. We'll file for a temporary restraining order, but you need to see a lawyer first thing tomorrow." After the officers left, the penthouse felt strangely quiet. Lily had stopped crying but still clung to Emma, as if her life depended on it. "Can I have a glass of water?" Lily asked in a small voice. "Of course, honey," Emma said. But when she tried to set her down, Lily held on tighter. "I don't want to leave your arms," she whispered. "What if the angry man comes back?" James knelt down so he was at her level. "Lily, can I tell you a secret?" The little girl looked at him, her eyes still red from crying. "What secret?" "I will never, ever let anyone take you and your mom away from me," he said, his voice firm but gentle at the same time. "No matter what happens, you two are my family now, and I protect my family." Lily studied his face with that seriousness only children can have. "Promise?" "Promise." James held out his pinky. "Pinky promise." Lily hooked her tiny finger around his. "Pinky promises are the most important ones of all." "Exactly." James smiled. "And I never break a pinky promise." Emma watched them, feeling something stir deep in her chest. The way James spoke, the certainty in his voice, the way Lily trusted him instantly, it was like she was seeing a side of him she never imagined existed. "How about we go get that glass of water in the kitchen?" James suggested, "and maybe some hot chocolate for everyone." "With marshmallows?" Lily asked, perking up a little. "With all the marshmallows in the world." James promised. An hour later, Lily had finally fallen asleep on the living room sofa, wrapped in a blanket and holding the teddy bear James had bought her on their first day together. Emma and James sat in the kitchen, still in silence, processing everything that had happened. "Thank you," Emma said at last, "for everything, for staying calm, for dealing with the police, for reassuring Lily." "No need to thank me," James said, stirring the coffee he'd made for both of them. "I meant what I told her." Emma studied him, "About protecting us, about you being my family," he corrected. "I know this started as an arrangement, Emma, but it doesn't feel like that anymore." Emma felt her heart pick up speed. "James, I know it's complicated." He leaned forward. "I know you have reasons not to trust easily. But what I felt when that man was outside threatening you, I've never felt anything like it. It was like someone was trying to rip my heart out." Emma looked down at her hands, fighting the urge to open up completely. "You don't really know me, James. You don't know my story, where I come from. Then tell me. It's complicated. I've got time." Emma lifted her eyes to meet his steady, patient, waiting. For a moment, she almost told him everything. About the summer 15 years ago, about the boy she had loved and lost, about how she had kept the pendant all these years as a reminder of when she believed fairy tales could be real. But then she remembered the difference between them, the temporary nature of their arrangement, the fact that in 2 weeks everything would go back to normal. "Maybe another day," she said softly. "Today was too much already." James nodded, clearly disappointed but respecting her space. "Of course. You must be exhausted." "I am," Emma admitted, standing. "I'll take Lily to her bed." "Emma," James called as she was leaving the kitchen. "What I told Lily, it wasn't just to calm her down. I truly intend to protect both of you. From Carlos. From the lawyers. From anyone who tries to hurt you." Emma looked at him differently then, not just as the wealthy CEO paying for a charade, but as something else, something that both scared and drew her in. "Good night, James," she said quietly and left the kitchen, carrying Lily. The next morning, Emma woke to the sound of voices in the living room. She recognized James's voice, and another she couldn't place. She glanced at the clock. 8:30. James should have been at the office at least an hour ago. She slipped on a robe and stepped out of the bedroom. In the living room, she found James sitting on the sofa with an older man, gray-haired and serious-looking. Papers were spread out on the coffee table. "Oh, Emma." James stood. "This is Robert Thompson, the private investigator I hired." Emma's stomach dropped. "Private investigator to help with Carlos's case," James explained quickly. "We need information on him for the custody process." Robert stood and held out his hand. "Pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Wilson. While I was looking into Mr. Rivera's background, I came across some interesting information about you as well." Emma felt the blood drain from her face. "What kind of information?" Robert glanced at James, who gave him a nod to go on. "Well, when I was checking old records, I found some curious connections." Robert opened a folder. "You lived in Santa Monica during the summer of 2009, didn't you?" Emma slowly sat down. "How do you know that?" "Employment records. You worked at an ice cream shop on the beach," Robert continued. "And during that time, you spent time at certain places." James was watching Emma closely. "Robert, could you be more specific?" "You met James that summer," Robert said plainly. "You spent time together. There are photographs, statements from people who saw you together." The silence that followed was deafening. Emma could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. "And there's more," Robert went on, pulling something from the folder. "This photo was taken that summer. It was the same picture Emma had once seen on James's desk at the office. 2 young people smiling, arms around each other on the beach. But this time, she could clearly see the pendant James was putting around her neck, the same pendant your daughter wears today," Robert concluded. James turned to Emma, his expression a mix of realization and relief. "You knew," he said quietly, "from the very first day, you knew who I was." Emma closed her eyes. There was no escaping the truth now. "Yes," she whispered. "I knew. Why didn't you say anything?" Emma opened her eyes and met his gaze. "Because you were James Carter, a millionaire CEO, and I was Emma Wilson, a single mom serving coffee. Because 15 years had passed, and we were completely different people by then." "Are we?" James asked, standing and moving toward her. "Because when I look at you, I see the same girl who made me laugh until my stomach hurt, the same one who stayed up all night talking about dreams, the same one you left behind when that summer ended," Emma interrupted, the old hurt rushing back. "The same one who waited for a phone call that never came." James stopped in front of her. "Emma, do you want me to step out?" Robert asked awkwardly. "Yes," Emma and James said at the same time. Once Robert left, they just stared at each other. 15 years of unspoken history hanging in the air. "We need to talk," James said. "Yes," Emma agreed. "We do." But before either of them could say more, Lily came running in from the kitchen, still in her pajamas. "Good morning," she said brightly. "Maria's making butterfly-shaped pancakes. Come see." Emma and James exchanged a look. The conversation would have to wait, but now, at least, there were no more secrets between them. James spent the rest of the day planning how he would tell Emma everything. After that morning's revelation, he knew he had to explain why he never reached out, why it had taken him so long to acknowledge her, and most of all, how his feelings had grown from simple nostalgia into something much deeper. He had arranged a special dinner in the penthouse. Lily would spend the night at a school friend's house. Maria would prepare Emma's favorite dish, and he would finally be honest about everything. About the summer of 2009, about how he had never been able to forget her, about how finding her again felt like fate. But Olivia had other plans. Emma was at the cafe finishing her afternoon shift when Olivia walked in, wearing a look that mixed triumph with fake concern. "Emma, dear," she said, sitting at one of the empty tables, "we need to talk." "If this is about James, I'm not interested," Emma replied, continuing to wipe the counter. "That's exactly what it's about," Olivia pressed, "about why he really got close to you." Emma stopped cleaning. "What are you talking about? Do you really think it was a coincidence?" Olivia laughed. "James Carter, the most calculating man I know, just happening to show up at the cafe where you work, suddenly taking an interest in you and your daughter out of nowhere. I don't know what you're talking about." Olivia leaned in. "He's always known who you were, Emma. From the very first day, he had you investigated before you two ever met." Emma's stomach tightened. "That's a lie, is it?" Olivia pulled some photos from her purse. These came from his private investigator's file. Pictures of you from 15 years ago, records from the summer you spent together, all documented before he ever set foot in Manhattan Brew. Emma took the photos with trembling hands. They were of her, young, smiling on the beach with James, with a date stamped in the corner 2 weeks before James had appeared at Manhattan Brew. "I don't understand." "He felt guilty, Emma," Olivia said with mock sympathy, "for leaving you that summer. When he found out you had a daughter, that you were struggling, he decided to help out of obligation." "Obligation?" "A kind of debt of gratitude." Olivia shrugged. "You were special to him that summer, so he felt he owed you something." "The fake relationship. Letting you stay in the penthouse, it's all part of him feeling better about himself." Emma felt the world spin. "You're lying." "Am I?" Olivia stood up. "Then why didn't he ever tell you he knew who you were from the very beginning? Why put on this whole act of finding out this morning?" Emma couldn't answer. Olivia's questions echoed her own doubts, fears she had tried to bury over the past few weeks. "Think about it, Emma," Olivia went on. "A man like James Carter, used to having any woman he wants, suddenly falls for a waitress? Or is he trying to make up for a past mistake?" "Get out," Emma whispered, her voice barely steady. "I'm only trying to protect you from bigger humiliation," Olivia said, sauntering toward the door. "Because when he gets tired of playing the hero, you'll end up right back where you've always been. And then who's going to explain that to Lily?" Emma worked the rest of her shift mechanically, Olivia's words looping in her mind. When she reached the penthouse, James was waiting in the living room, holding a bouquet of lilies and wearing an eager smile. "How was your day?" he asked, stepping forward to kiss her cheek. Emma flinched away. "I need to pack my bags." "What?" His smile vanished. "Why?" "Because I found out the truth," Emma said, heading upstairs. "About you investigating my life before you ever showed up at the cafe." James followed, his voice urgent. "Emma, I can explain." "Explain what?" She spun to face him. "That it was all a lie from the start? That you only got close to me out of guilt? It's not like that." "No?" Emma began tossing clothes into her suitcase. "Then why didn't you tell me you knew who I was? Why pretend to be surprised this morning?" James ran a hand through his hair, exasperated. "Because I wanted to be sure, and I didn't know how to explain without you thinking exactly what you're thinking now. That you're with me out of pity? Out of obligation?" Emma's laugh was bitter. "That's exactly what I'm thinking." "Emma, please listen." "No," she snapped. "I've listened too much. I've believed too much. I've let Lily get attached too much." As if summoned, Lily appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. "Mom, why are you yelling?" she asked softly. Emma softened her tone. "We're leaving, sweetheart. We're going back home." "But why?" Lily looked between Emma and James, tears brimming. "Did we do something wrong?" "No, honey." Emma knelt before her daughter. We just can't stay here anymore." Lily's lip trembled. "But I like living here. And I like James. He promised he'd never let anyone take us away." Emma's heart cracked. "Sometimes people change their minds. Lily, I haven't changed my mind," James said desperately. "Lily, your mom's just confused. We can talk and work this out." "No, we can't," Emma said, standing and lifting Lily into her arms. "Some things can't be fixed." James. 2 hours later, they were back in their cramped Queens apartment. Lily sobbed the entire cab ride and now sat on her bed, drawing in silence. Emma was in the kitchen, hands shaking as she tried to make dinner, when she found a folded piece of paper on the counter. It was one of Lily's drawings. Her, James, and Emma, holding hands under a bright yellow sun with red hearts scattered around. On the back, in Lily's careful handwriting, it read, "For James, if you don't like us anymore, that's okay. Sometimes adults change their minds, but I like you a lot. You're the best borrowed dad I ever had. Thank you for being nice to me and my mom. Love, Lily." Emma sank to the kitchen floor, sobbing harder than she had in years because Lily had lost another father figure, because she'd let her heart open again, and because, despite everything, part of her still wanted to believe James was genuine. But wanting to believe and being able to believe were worlds apart, and Emma had learned the hard way that fairy tales weren't real. James was in the middle of the quarter's most critical meeting with Japanese investors when Ethan burst into the conference room, interrupting his presentation. "James, I'm sorry, but it's an emergency," Ethan whispered urgently. Emma got served with a court order. "The custody hearing is today. In 1 hour." James froze, the financial projections on the screen suddenly irrelevant. "Today, Carlos filed for an emergency motion. He claims Emma's living with you is inappropriate for a child and that she's keeping him from seeing his daughter," the investors murmured, visibly confused. James looked at them, then at Ethan, and made a decision without hesitation. "Gentlemen," he said, closing his laptop, "we'll need to reschedule. Ethan, clear my calendar." "James," the lead investor protested. "This is crucial. My family is more important," James replied, already heading for the door. "Ethan, where's Emma now?" "On her way to court. Alone." James sprinted to the elevator, his heart racing. The Manhattan family court was a chaotic maze when James arrived, breathless and still in his suit. He scanned the crowded hallway until he spotted Emma on a bench, Lily beside her, both looking small and fragile in the sterile setting. "Emma," he called, rushing over. Emma looked up, startled and visibly shaken. "James, what are you doing here?" "I came to help," he said, kneeling before Lily. "How are you two holding up?" "Scared," Lily admitted, her voice tiny. "The angry man wants to take me away from Mom." "That's not going to happen," James said firmly. "I promise." Emma shook her head. "James, you don't get it. His lawyer is sharp. They're using our situation to prove I'm an unfit mother." "What do you mean?" "They're saying I exposed Lily to unstable relationships, that I chase rich men for stability." Emma swallowed hard. "And technically, they're not entirely wrong about the instability." A court officer appeared. "Case Wilson versus Rivera. Hearing in 5 minutes." James stood. "I'm going in with you." "You can't," Emma said. "You're not family." "Then I'll watch from the gallery," James insisted. "You're not facing this alone." The hearing was brutal. Carlos's lawyer portrayed Emma as a reckless mother who dragged her daughter through unstable relationships, using tabloid photos, the penthouse move, and the previous night's incident to argue she endangered Lily. Carlos, now sober and polished, played the remorseful father eager to save his daughter from a chaotic life. Emma tried to defend herself, but her nerves betrayed her, her responses faltering. James watched from the gallery, his frustration mounting with every accusation. When the judge asked for additional witnesses, he stood without thinking. "Your Honor, may I speak?" The judge frowned. "And you are?" "James Carter. I've been with Emma and Lily these past few weeks." Carlos's lawyer smirked. "Perfect. Another witness to the defendant's poor judgment." "Actually," James said, stepping forward, "I'm here to say the opposite." The judge nodded. "Proceed." James took a deep breath. "Your Honor, I've seen Emma Wilson be an extraordinary mother every single day. I've watched her rise before dawn to make Lily a special breakfast, work 2 jobs to provide for her, read to her every night, help with her homework, and put her own needs aside to ensure Lily is happy and safe." Objection. Carlos's lawyer interjected. "Unqualified witness." "Overruled," the judge said. "Continue, Mr. Carter. Lily is a bright, joyful, well-adjusted child because she has an exceptional mother, James continued, his voice steady. A mother who shielded her when this man showed up drunk at our door, terrifying a 6-year-old. A mother who prioritizes her daughter's safety above everything, even her own happiness. Emma was quietly crying now, overwhelmed by James's defense. And the accusation of instability? The judge asked. Emma Wilson is the most stable person I know, James said, looking directly at her. She's consistent, reliable, and loves her daughter more than life itself. Any instability was caused by external circumstances, not her choices. No one could care for Lily better than her mother. The courtroom fell silent. Even Carlos seemed unsettled by James's conviction. The judge made notes. Given the complexity, I'm postponing my decision for 48 hours to review the evidence. Court adjourned. Outside, Emma found her voice. Thank you, she said, tears still in her eyes. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, James replied. Every word was true. Lily tugged his sleeve. You saved us again. James knelt to her level. You two save yourselves every day by being who you are. Emma hesitated, then spoke. James, about yesterday, I might have overreacted. No, he stood. You reacted understandably. I should have been honest from the start. They walked silently to the parking lot, Lily skipping ahead. Emma. James stopped. I need to tell you why I never reached out after that summer. You don't have to. I do. He took a breath. I was young. A coward. I thought you deserved more than I could offer then. I told myself I was protecting you, but I was just selfish. Emma Metischaze, I have a confession too. I recognized you that first day at the cafe. You did? Your eyes. They're the same, she said with a wistful smile. I thought about staying away, but I was struggling. When you offered this deal, you pretended not to know me. It was safer, Emma admitted. I didn't want your pity. James stepped closer. It was never pity, Emma. From that first day, when you called me out for small talk, I knew I was still in love with you. Emma's breath caught. I never stopped thinking about you either, she whispered. When James leaned in, she didn't pull away. Their kiss was soft, carrying 15 years of longing. Ew, Lily shouted, running back. You're kissing? They laughed, pulling apart. Yep, James said, scooping Lily up. And if your mom lets me, I'll keep kissing her for a long time. Lily looked at Emma hopefully. Can I let him, Mom? Emma smiled, feeling whole for the first time in years. Yes, sweetheart, you can. 3 days later, Emma was at work when Ethan entered the cafe, grinning broadly and waving an envelope. Emma, the judge's decision is here. She dropped everything, hands trembling as she opened it. Her eyes scanned until she found the words, full custody granted to the petitioner, Emma Wilson. I won, she whispered, then shouted, prompting cheers from the cafe. Sarah hugged her, and even Barbara managed to smile. The judge said Carlos showed no ability or genuine interest in being a father, Ethan explained. James's testimony was a key factor. Emma's tears were of relief. Lily was safe, truly safe. That night, James planned a celebratory dinner. Nothing too fancy, Emma warned, getting ready. Lily gets nervous in upscale places. Don't worry, James said with a secretive smile. It'll be perfect. The penthouse terrace was transformed with twinkling fairy lights, rose petals scattered across the floor, and a small table set for 3. Maria, Ethan, and several employees peeked from behind plants, clearly in on the plan. James, what's this? Before he could answer, Lily ran out in a new dress, holding a velvet pillow. Mom, it's time for the surprise. What surprise? James knelt, taking the pillow from Lily. He opened it, revealing a sparkling solitaire ring. Emma Wilson, he said, voice trembling. Will you marry me? Emma covered her mouth, speechless. Lily bounced excitedly. Say yes, Mom. We planned everything. You planned this? Lily was my partner in crime. James smiled. She picked the flowers, helped decorate, and gave me tips on what you'd like. And if you say yes, Lily added, I can finally call you my real dad. Emma looked at James, then Lily's glowing face, and the cheering employees. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes. The terrace erupted in celebration. James slipped the ring onto her finger, then kissed her as everyone clapped. Now we're a real family, Lily shouted, hugging their legs. 6 months later, on the same terrace adorned with white and gold flowers, Emma walked toward a makeshift altar where James waited. Lily, the flower girl, scattered petals with utmost seriousness. The ceremony was intimate, just close family and friends. During the vows, James took Emma's hands. "Emma, 15 years ago, I gave you a pendant as a keepsake from a perfect summer. I didn't know then that you'd keep not only my pendant but my heart forever." Emma laughed through tears. "And I promise never to pretend I don't know you again." When pronounced husband and wife, James kissed her, and Lily piped up mid-kiss. "Can I ask for a brother now?" The guests roared with laughter. "Lily," Emma protested, laughing too. "It's a valid question," James said, lifting Lily. "What do you think, Mrs. Carter?" "I think you two will drive me crazy," Emma said, eyes shining. The music kicked in a lively tune. Lily chose for dancing, and the three spun on the dance floor, joined by guests. James twirled Emma, then lifted Lily, her giggles filling the air. During a slower song, they danced together, Lily on James's feet. "I love you," Emma whispered. "I love you both, too," James replied. "Forever. Forever's a long time," Lily said solemnly. "Not long enough," James and Emma said in unison, laughing at their perfect harmony. Under the Manhattan stars, with Lily's pendant glinting and Emma's ring sparkling, Emma knew she'd found her place in the world.